What are you staring at? You're a stranger now.
I turned around and there was my mother-in-law with a smirk on her face. She looked at me as if she were looking at trash. I had a lot on my mind, but I tried to keep my composure and sat back. Yes, I know. But this house?
What? After all this time? It's no use apologizing. Get out of my son's house as fast as you can.
I understand. The movers will be here shortly.
Oh, well, can you make it quicker?
She must be quite happy to live alone and doting on her son. Her own son lives in a condo. Now all that is left is for me to get divorced and for me to leave, and all will be well for her. She must be thinking like that. But I'm sorry to hear that. Do you think you can get what you want after mocking people so much? I won't let that happen. I'm going to push you to the limit. My name is Cecile. I am 29 years old. I got married 2 years ago, and now I work for a company. I met my husband Douglas 4 years ago. He was working at a factory that was a subcontractor of our company. We first met at a business meeting. I was one in charge of the meeting, and I went to the factory, but he was also the liaison. In between meetings, we began to do small talk and naturally grew closer. We became attracted to each other, and eventually he asked me to go out with him. After 2 years of dating, we successfully made it to the finish line. My family and colleagues congratulated me, but my good friends were a little concerned. The reason was that my husband's income was lower than mine. My company is a fairly large one, and even I, as a woman, earn nearly twice as much as my age. In contrast, my husband, who is the same age as me, earns less than half my income. Why would you marry someone who earns more than half as much as you do? I was asked many times by good friends, but I didn't care about money. I have never had much of an appetite for material things, and I buy only the bare minimum of clothing. I have plenty of money saved up, and if I had to spend it on someone I liked, I wouldn't begrudge it. That's what I thought. Because of this personality, I didn't mind marrying Douglas. But I didn't realize at the time that my marriage to Douglas was going to be a huge mistake for me. After about a year of marriage, we moved to a condo. The reason was that my husband started saying that he wanted to live there at least once in his life. I was against it at first because it came out of the blue. But once he starts talking, he never backs down. On this particular day, he started talking to me again.
Let's move to a condo.
You're talking about that again. I'd rather save up and buy my own home than move to a place like that.
In this day and age, owning your own home is nothing but a disadvantage. It costs a lot of money for the land, and it takes a lot of time and effort to maintain. On the other hand, with a condominium, the management company takes care of everything.
That's true, but...
Right? And their security is the best. I'm just worrying about you.
You worry about me? I still don't know if my husband really thought so at the time. It may have been just a stopgap lie to get us to move to a condo. Still, I felt that he was thinking about me that much. I was so pleased with my husband's love that I listened to his request. We decided to move to a condo. Naturally, all the initial and moving costs were waiting for me. I was also the owner of the condominium, but he and I accepted it as a matter of course. However, right after we moved in, I began to feel uncomfortable. It was because my mother-in-law started to stay at the condo on a regular basis. Of course, it was my husband who invited her, but even so, it was too frequent. At first, it was once a week, then 2 days a week, then 4 days a week, and the frequency of visits gradually increased. Today, when I came home again, I found my mother-in-law in the living room. I was stunned, but she smiled and started talking.
Oh my God, Cecile! Welcome home.
What are you doing in our house, Joanna?
Oh, you didn't hear? Douglas gave me a duplicate key the other day. He said I could come over whenever I wanted. That's why I came early today. I didn't know that. And I didn't know that you would just show up without any notice. That's fine. We're a family. I don't need to call you every time I go to my son's house.
Oh no. I was at a loss for further words because of the difference from my common sense. In contrast to my standing still, my mother-in-law started humming and rummaging through the refrigerator. Finally, she took out the cream puffs I had bought.
I'm hungry, so I'll have some.
And started eating them without permission. I couldn't believe it. Did my mother-in-law really have such a lack of common sense? No matter how much she's my mother-in-law, doesn't she usually not have this much discretion? I was surprised that my own common sense and that of others were so different. The reason why I couldn't speak out strongly was because she was my husband's mother. I had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I could not say them to my mother-in-law. So one evening, I decided to talk to my husband about it. Hey Douglas, about your mother. Could she come a little less often? My husband frowned and said in a pained tone,
Oh, why are you unhappy with my mother's visits?
I mean, it's fine for her to come to our house. It's just that she comes too often. Besides, why did you have to give your mother a duplicate key? It's just that when I come home from work and she is there, I'm surprised and I don't feel at ease.
She's family too. She cares about us.
So don't talk like that. That's not what I'm talking about.
Anyway, I'll let her do whatever she wants. You're just my wife, so don't be too bossy with my mother.
My husband, who was so kind to me when we were dating, and yet, and at the beginning of our marriage, seemed to have changed recently. Especially when it comes to my mother-in-law, he relentlessly stands up to her and blames me. My husband puts my mother-in-law before me. This was the moment when I became aware of the discomfort I had been pretending not to notice. After I told my husband about this, he started coming home late. He had rarely worked overtime in the past, but now he comes home in the morning several times a week. The fact that my husband comes home late inevitably means that he spends more time with his mother-in-law. Although they don't live together, my mother-in-law has started to stay over without a care in the world. Each time, she complained about my housework.
These side dishes are not well seasoned. A wife should take care of the house, not a job. That's why Douglas doesn't come home anymore.
The list goes on and on. All of these are unreasonable arguments. Every time she complains, my heart's gradually worn away. My husband doesn't come home very often, and when I try to talk to him, he gives me a disapproving look. I have been unable to tell him what was going on. Then one day, on a holiday, my husband had gone out in the morning. My mother-in-law also did not come today. I started to clean the house to enjoy my time alone for the first time in a while. I vacuumed the living room and hallway, and finally went to my husband's room. As I was mopping under the bed, I suddenly saw a receipt. What? What is this? The receipt was for a place used by men and women to engage in dubious activities. I checked the date and found that it coincided with the day he had to come home in the morning because he had to work overtime. Convinced that my husband was cheating on me, I immediately searched through the closet. I found a small paper bag in the bag. It contained a list of restaurants he might have gone to with his cheating partner. There was also a large number of receipts for brand names items that he had bought for her. Douglas had recently asked me to reduce our living expenses in the name of saving money for our newborn child. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I realize that it was probably a lie to pay for the affair partner. The next day, I went to a detective agency that I had researched beforehand and asked them to investigate my husband's affair. I acted normal at home so that my husband and mother-in-law would not know. 2 weeks later, I went to the detective agency to get a report. My husband was having an affair with the daughter of the factory president. With the evidence in hand, I decided to wait for my husband to come home that night. He came home after midnight as usual, and I immediately started talking to him. "Douglas, you were cheating on me, weren't you?" My husband had his back to me, but the moment he heard those words, his shoulders jolted. He slowly turned around and began to make excuses with a limp smile. "What are you talking about? I would never cheat on you." "I already have proof. You can't get away with it." No. It's not like I'm playing around with her." "I don't care if it's for fun or not. You can't have that kind of relationship with her. And it's true that you lied to me." "Well, that's..." "Anyway, I can't do it anymore. I've decided to get a divorce." I took out my completed divorce papers and held them out in front of my husband. His eyes widened for a moment. Then he clicked his tongue and began to fill them out roughly. The next day, I went to the office to get Douglas out of the house. I called the movers to have Douglas removed from the house for the next holiday. I didn't tell him about it, but he has a family home, so he would have no trouble finding a place to go. I will just cancel the lease there, as next month is the new renewal month for this condo. I had decided to move to another apartment near the office. 1 week later, on this day, the movers were supposed to come this afternoon. Douglas was off work, and I've been home since the morning. He proudly called his cheating partner. "I've already hired a lawyer and have already filed a claim for compensation against Douglas and the cheating partner. I will soon receive a certified letter, and when that happens, the factory where he works will find out. The affair will be exposed to the president of the company as well." However, Douglas may be relaxed now that the divorce has already been finalized. He is having a nice phone conversation with his partner. While I was doing housework with him in the background, the intercom rang. I opened the front door to find my mother-in-law standing there. She was carrying a large carry-on case, and she was walking into the house. I don't know why she was carrying such a large baggage, but she must have come to stay without permission as usual. While I was doing my chores without paying attention to her, she called out to me from behind. "Why are you still here? You are an outsider now, aren't you?" I turned around to see my mother-in-law smiling wickedly at me. She looked at me as if she were looking at trash. I had a lot on my mind, but I just kept my composure and sat back. "Yes, I suppose so. But this house? What? It's no use apologizing now. Get out of my son's condo as fast as you can." "Huh? Didn't you hear me? I said get out. You're divorced, aren't you? Then there's no reason for you to be here. From today, I'm going to live here." At that moment, I felt my sympathy for them disappeared. I found myself lowering my voice and saying in return, "Okay, I understand. The movers will be here in a few minutes." "Oh, well, can you make it quick?" "Even just for a second. I guess she is quite happy to live alone with her son. After all, her own son lives in a condo. All that is left is for me to get divorced and for me to leave, and all will be well for her." She must be thinking like that. But that's unfortunate. Do you think you can get what you want after mocking people so much? I won't let that happen. I'm going to drive you to the brink. And there you are. The movers arrived just in time. I unlocked the entrance and invited them in. "Please take care of everything in that room. Oh, and please leave the living room as it is." I gave the order, and the contractors entered Douglas's room and immediately began working. "Hey, what's going on? What do you mean? You're the one who's leaving. So why don't you just move your stuff out?" Apparently, Douglas really thought he could continue to live in the house after the divorce. This place was originally contracted in my name, and I had paid the rent. Anyone who thinks about it knows that he won't be able to live here if he gets divorced. And his mother, she also really thought that she and her son would be able to live in the house after I left. This is why she came all the way here today with her large luggage.
What do you mean?
I said coldly to my mother-in-law, who was yelling at me.
What's the meaning of all this?
Do you know why I divorced him in the first place? It was because he cheated on me.
So what? You are a narrow-minded woman who can't forgive a man's cheating or two. Don't you dare sit on your hands like that.
What did you say? Perhaps you don't know that this room is rented in my name and that I have been paying all the rent.
What do you mean? I thought Douglas was renting this condo.
My mother-in-law looked at my ex-husband, but he quickly looked away. He was probably lying to make himself look good. Meanwhile, more and more of Douglas's stuff was being moved out.
Hey, where are you taking my stuff?
He was panicking, so I said to him, "Where's it going to?"
"Your parents' house."
"It's good that you have a place to go." "Well, I don't know what your strict father will say."
"Wait a minute. If my dad finds out about this, I beg you, please, forgive me. I'll do anything."
"If you will do anything, then get out of my sight right now. I'll never forgive you and your mother. You are a distraction to my life. You're disgusting. Get out of my life."
We've been together this whole time. We trusted each other as husband and wife.
Who is the one who broke that trust? You live in a condo you want. You let your mother do whatever she wants. And you betrayed me behind my back. How's that? Satisfied? I bet you must have been very vain to be able to live in a tower block with your wife's money.
Cecile, don't say that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk.
No. Get your mother and get out of here. I'm not the one who's living in this room. You are. I guess they were surprised by my anger, which I had never shown before. Douglas and my mother-in-law grabbed their belongings and ran away. Then, they went back to their hometown. At first, they kept the divorce from my father-in-law. However, he found out everything by the certified letter from the lawyer's office. My father-in-law was furious and kicked Douglas out of the house, disinheriting him. My father-in-law called me to ask about the situation, so I told him about it. He told me that he had finally decided to divorce my mother-in-law. They were kicked out of their house and moved into a one-room apartment. However, when the president of the company he worked for found out about the affair, Douglas was fired immediately. Douglas was also cut off from the daughter of the company president with whom he was having an affair. He lost his job and had nothing left. Now, he and his mother are working part-time to make ends meet. He got what he deserved. Suck on that. As for me, I have moved to an apartment near my office. I'm living a peaceful life. I am now able to save a lot of money for rent and living expenses. Now that I'm single again, I'm thinking of going on a trip by myself again. I think about it as I look at the travel brochure I saw. From now on, it would not be a bad idea to try to live for myself. I was finally able to think this way.